Welcome back to the weekly stock portfolio update videos. Currently, my two stock portfolios sit at a combined value of over $129,000. That's made up of the $71,891 in my stake portfolio and then the $57,227 in my Vanguard portfolio. So between the two of them, I'm getting closer again to that $130,000 mark before we end the year. Overall, my portfolio did sit at around $136,000 before I sold out of some big positions, but more on that later. Today I'm going to be talking about these nearly $6,000 I just invested into three positions, why I invested into them, and what I'm doing with my portfolio to wrap up 2025. Overall, if we have a look at my holdings, you can see I have four key holdings in my stake portfolio. So what I did recently, yesterday to be exact, I invested into Amazon and Microsoft. Google is a company that I've really been growing recently, but it's had a really strong stock surge. So I had around 2,700 or 2,800 USD sitting in my stock portfolio from the sales of my positions in Apple and Costco. And I was looking for where to allocate them. They'd been sitting there for around a month, and I decided to look at my positions and see where I could find value, hopefully. Amazon stock had been hit recently, and whilst it's not had the best year, around 2% up in the green, I was still in the green around 13-15%. So I'd still made money on it just due to the time that I was investing. I tried to buy during the dip, and you can see my average share price is now $200 a share. So that was it was around 190, I believe, or 180, around that. So I had made decent gains on it. But again, this is a company I still believe has lots of room to run. It's only up 43% in the last 5 years, especially when you compare it to the S&P 500. It's lagging quite a bit. Same with some of the other tech giants who are up over 100%. The stock is trading at around a 31 PE ratio, which for Amazon is quite cheap. And I think long term, when you look at robotics, you think of AI. This is a company that can really implement that, be that into their white collar business with AWS or into their fulfillment and logistic kind of business with their packing and shipping and delivering, things like that. I think Amazon's a company that can really grow going to the future. And if there is going to be a company that will be a beneficiary of AI, I think Amazon will likely be that. So yes, I invested around 1,300, 1,400 USD, so around $2,000 AUD into Amazon stock. That takes my total equity position to around 8,924, so nearly 9,000 USD, or just under 40 shares. So Amazon's one that I plan on keeping for a while. I believe in the company long term, and we'll see how that will play out. The other position was Microsoft. So Microsoft is a bit of a different story as well. So Microsoft was one of the first companies I ever invested in. And you can see I recently also, similar to Amazon, I purchased 1,400 USD of stocks, so around 2,000 AUD, and you can see my total equity position is around just under 8,000 USD, or around 16.4 shares. So I'm up around 42%. Again, that's because this has been a long-term position for me. My average buy price is around $342. But similar to Amazon, it's had a better year, obviously. But if we look in the last 6 months, it's traded quite flat. The stock did reach highs. You can see around $542 a share, which was very good. There was a time where I was up quite a lot on Microsoft and I considered taking some gains. But since then, the stock has really retracted. You can see whilst it is only down 1.4% in the last month, if you have a look from its highs from where it fell here, so the stock was all the way at 542, and now it's all the way down here around 485. So this is a stock I still believe in as well. Its PE ratio is a bit expensive, so it's sitting at around 34 PE ratio. It had been high, obviously, during its highs. But again, Microsoft is a company I believe has basically a perfect business model. They've got such strong recurring revenue. They've got every corporation uses their products pretty much. You can see they're also leaning into AI, if that's something that you value, be that through Copilot, be that through their investment in OpenAI. But yeah, I think Microsoft will be a good position going forward, and I think it was a time I could probably get more value in it than other positions. And again, I'm trying to keep a long-term outlook on things. I've held these positions for over 5 years now, Microsoft, so I plan to do hopefully the same for the next 5 years. Maybe I have to rearrange my portfolio, but again, I try to keep a long-term outlook on my holdings. The other position I'd weighed up was Google. So Google I still believe in a lot, but you can see in the last 6 months it's shot up around 84%. So overall, it's probably not, again, that's not an indicator. Whether a stock goes up a bunch, it doesn't mean it's more overvalued than others. But I did buy in quite a bit, and I'm up around 86%. So I really bought in heavy when there was all the threats around them getting separated, them having to sell off Chrome. I have an average buy price of around 164. So pretty much this chart is my chart of my investment, and it's done really well for me. I'm up around to 10,415 USD in equity, around 34 shares, and that's around 4,835 USD in the gains. So that's been a really, really strong returner for me. And I also didn't want to get too valued into Google when there are other companies as well. The S&P 500, so VOO, a bit on more on this later because I'll touch on my Vanguard portfolio as well, but I thought of investing into VOO. I used to heavily invest into VOO in this portfolio, so basically every second trade I did was into VOO. It allowed me to build this position, so you can see it's around 20,600 USD, and I'm up around 50%, or 6,788 USD, with an average price of $420 a share. So it has been very good to me. I think having this investment has really balanced out my portfolio. It's kind of smoothed things out through the highs and lows. You can see it's up around 85% in the last 5 years. The last year it's up 16.4%, which is a really, really good year. We've had a bunch of good years for the S&P 500, which has just really rewarded asset owners. So if you've been holding assets, it's been a good time for you. Yeah, we've had some blimps, but I think that's part of the journey. I have them all on here on my YouTube channel, from 2021 when I was in the highs, then 2022 when I was losing money, all the way up till, Liberation Day, things like that. So it just kind of teaches you to keep a long-term outlook on things. And I do plan to keep a good chunk of my portfolio invested into a S&P tracking ETF, because I just think it's hard to beat the market long term, and it just gives me a good bit of diversification. They're still heavily weighted towards the tech sector, which I am biased to because I'm young. I'm only a 23-year-old investor, so my focus is on capital gains, not dividends. And any dividends I do get from this portfolio just reinvested back into my position, so I can kind of use that snowball effect. But you can see that's kind of how my portfolio is looking at the moment with this portfolio. And again, it's now up to around just under 72,000 AUD, which is quite good considering I haven't really been investing into this portfolio. That's one thing. This portfolio's gains have been really good because of the individual stock selection, and just the US markets have been so strong in recent years. In comparison, I also have my Vanguard account. So a bit of context, I created this account a few years back just to kind of, Stake was charging a bit higher fees and things like that, so I was looking at other places I could invest. Vanguard looked quite attractive, and I was already looking and using their ETFs. So I had a look. They don't offer VOO for Australian investors, which is quite sad, but they have the next best option, which is VGS. So VGS is an international shares ETF. You can see I own 372 shares of it, or $57,000. So this is by far my biggest position across both the portfolios. It does pay a strong dividend, again, same as my stake portfolio. I just reinvested it all back into the position, but there was a point where this portfolio was sitting higher in the 60,000s. But I did used to own a position in here called VLC, which tracked the 20 biggest companies in Australia. I did sell out of that position, so I sold. The highest that position ever got to was around $16,000. I trimmed it down to 11,000, and I sold everything. So just because I think there's better value in other markets. I'm not saying the Australian market isn't the best, but I think it pays a very strong dividend. So if that's what you're into, again, this isn't financial advice, but it pays very strong dividends. So if that's, you're maybe in that stage of your career where you kind of want that cash flow, maybe it's a good investment for you. I'd made a little bit of money, but again, I think long-term, my focus really does need to be on capital gains, because when I look long term, I either need to invest in property and get leveraged, or I need to invest in high value growth stocks. There's no point in being in low growth stocks, kind of defensive stocks. Again, I might make money over the long term, but it's not kind of the focus for me. Having a look at this ETF, you can see a bit more about it. It's had decent year returns. This doesn't get updated too often, so the return is actually less than this, but it's not too far from VOO. But I do actually think it's only around 10%. But if you look at the last 5 years, it's been pretty much perfect with VOO in terms of their score hitting over 85% returns over the last 5 years. So the objective is to see kind of world exposure, excluding Australia, with net dividends reinvested. And then the overview is around 1,300 companies in developed countries. And yeah, it's done quite well, so I'm quite happy to be invested into it. Gives me diversification into a load of companies, over a load of countries as well. So yeah, hopefully it keeps doing well for me. And again, Vanguard I'm quite happy with Vanguard because it gives me really low fees. I don't have trading fees, things like that. So it's been a really good for me as an investor to kind of use their product. My dream would be to be sponsored by them. That'd be quite cool. If anyone knows anyone from Vanguard, tell them to reach out. But yeah, having a look at the Excel spreadsheet as well. I just updated this. Again, it's very basic, but it just kind of shows you how my weighting is. So in my American portfolio, you can see 43% is in my VOO, S&P tracking ETF. 16% is here in Microsoft, 22% in Alphabet, and 19% in Amazon. So that's how the portfolio is kind of weighted. It's a bit more concentrated. A few years back, I held JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, McDonald's, Apple, Costco, Meta. So I had lots of individual stocks. I still think that's can be a good thing. I probably wasn't keeping on track. It's very hard to understand what's going on across a bunch of companies, especially if you're quite time poor with other things. So I figured it was probably easier just for me to simplify. And then with my Australian portfolio, you can see, yeah, it's just the one position at the moment. But yeah, together they're sitting at around 129,000. Maybe I can hit 130K again before the end of the year. But this just kind of shows you the positions over time. You can see my stake portfolio has been quite consistent. And my Vanguard, I had that hit, as I mentioned before, when I sold out of my VLC position, moved it to cash, because again, I am saving for a house deposit as well. So it's kind of balancing that with my portfolios. It was the first time I've ever had a real big negative detraction in my portfolio value. But again, it's not the end of the world. I think the highest I'd put it in here was just under 65,000. I could easily get back to that if I just started depositing more again. But yeah, like I said, I'm building up a cash position to hopefully help towards a first home deposit. In terms of dividends, I haven't updated this. I updated it at the end of the month, but I did receive a small dividend from some of my tech positions. I believe Microsoft paid a dividend. Some others I saw in there. Again, all my dividends are just reinvested. So you can see my dividends over time. Just for 2025, I've tried to group them by years as well. This will hopefully go up. My goal was to hopefully hit $2,000 in dividends this year. I might just fall short of that. We'll see what happens, but again, it was just the arbitrary goal that I had set. But overall, you can see my dividends over time have really blown up, like especially my Vanguard, especially when I held VLC, which was my previous ETF. They paid really strong dividends, but this just shows you that snowball effect of why you got to keep investing for the long term, because as the money amount gets bigger, your dividends get bigger, your gains get bigger. Obviously, your losses can get bigger as well, but that's just the power of compound interest that you often hear people reference. My total dividends as well, so you can see that's nearly at 3,000 for Vanguard and around 800, over 800, especially if I update this for stake, and that's USD as well. So when you think about that covers flight, travel, and things like that. So yeah, it just shows you the power of investing. And I just plan on keep on doing this to kind of build wealth over time. And I quite enjoy it. I'll keep doing these videos on this channel as long as people keep watching. I went through a period where I wasn't really uploading much, but this is kind of trying to get me back on track. I plan on doing 2 shorts a day and then try to do 1 or 2 videos a week. But yeah, times can obviously get busy, but yeah, this is just a quick update video. As my portfolio wraps up, next week I'll do a bigger video, just kind of reflecting on the whole year. But that's all for now. Cheers.